very interesting result of a lot of painstaking work that has gone on for 7 years. IIT Kharagpur, so about a decade ago, we launched our research in collaboration with medical science and engineering, with collaboration with the medical fraternity. We believe that the world around, which is designed by human beings, and there is a world around which is designed by nature. The complexity of the natural world is much more than the complexity of the human created world. And we engineers typically are experts in studying signals and systems of the engineered world and quite a bit about nature. However, when we come to medical science, we realize that the human beings generate signals which are very complex, very subtle, and are very early indicators of a lot of things that go on in the human system. And the engineers do have at their disposal several tools and technologies that they have developed. But the human being provides the engineers a real avenue to generate new ideas, new processes, new methods for research in the life sciences, especially the medical sciences. So we started this initiative in a small way, which has now grown to our large initiative of signals and systems in life science. So, at the early stages, Dr. Bhattacharya has been one of our closest mentors, partners, collaborators, thinkers to do this. When we started this, we really needed research doctors who are research-minded, doctors who are capable of interacting with us, and doctors who have a passion, and doctors who are willing to devote their time for research, in innovative research. And Dr. Bhattacharya was one of them. We've known each other for several years, and during one of our discussions, when I think I went either as a patient or as a friend of a patient, we broached this idea that we will start doing analysis of other things, and him being a very famous pulmonologist, we thought that we will study the lung sound. And then I found Professor Gautam Saha, one of my colleagues at Kharagpur, who is an expert in signal processing. And he has done a lot of signal processing work. Signal processing, as you will know, is a very, very matured and a very, very mathematically oriented field by which we analyze signals. And this signal processing today is a core part of what is known as data sciences, big data analytics, and things like that. So my work was that of a photo, to find out two people who will be research spouses in that sense. And they have worked, and they worked very, very painstakingly over these years to study this very unique signal of the lung sound and what new things it brings to us. We always heard of stethoscope and people hearing heart sounds, but today we are very happy to announce that not only were we confident of our results, there has been a major peer recognition of this result. And this peer recognition has come out of peer international scientific journals saying that this is very, very good. So I thought that it is important for people to know that this city and this Institute of Kharagpur, where research in science has gone uniquely, very silently over several ages and decades, is again producing some very, very interesting new insight in the medical sciences. And this is just the harbinger for what is in store for the future. So I think I will let Dr. Bhattacharya and Mr. Gautam Shah tell you about this, and then we can take several questions.
Understand the lung diseases. In next few slides, I will discuss you what was our objective, how we went ahead, and what finally we have arrived. So you know there are two lungs, and the lungs are affected by diseases. The diseases could be primarily from the lungs itself, or it could be from involvement as a part of the multi-system disease, like a patient has rheumatoid arthritis, lungs are involved, like a patient has sarcoidosis, where other systems are also involved, lungs are involved. And if you see the lungs, basically the diseases can be divided into diseases of the airways, because you start breathing in through an air tube. This tube goes inside and ramifies like branches of a tree. Like that, the airways branch and rebranch and rebranch, and finally it goes to small pockets of bubble-like structure called alveoli. So those alveoli form the parenchyma. So it could be disease of the airway, disease of the parenchyma. It could be disease of the sheath that actually covers the lung, or it can be disease of the neuromuscular control. The lungs they swell up and again constricted. So that this has been done by the muscles. So it could be disease of the muscles and their control. So how do we see our patients? How do we find a disease? It starts from looking at the patient. The moment the patient gets in, we look at the patient. And from that point onwards, we start gathering informations and we start analyzing in our mind what could be the wrong in him or her. Then we listen to the patient. That means taking a history, the story of the event. And follow that, what do? We touch the patient, see the pulse, podcast on the chest like that. And finally, in the clinical examination protocol, we listen to the patient through a stethoscope. We put it on our heart chest and listen to the lung sound, try to understand what kind of sound it is. Is it normal or abnormal? If it is abnormal, what kind of abnormality is there? And what would be the cause of it? A lot of things we analyze in our mind and form a subjective impression of the disease. And this is followed by evaluation. This subjective impression formation through listening to a patient's lungs is called auscultation. And this gentleman, René Théophile Hyacinthe Lenk, happened to be the father of auscultation. He invented stethoscope way back in 1816. He watched two kids playing with a bar of wood, one keeping one end over his ear, the other scratching the other end with a pin. So he remembered that scene. Once he went to see a patient, she was a bit hefty lady and a bit more plump, and it was difficult for direct auscultation because prior to that people used to put the ear on the chest and listen. So what he felt, he found a newspaper lying in front of that lady. He rolled it immediately and tried to listen. And to his surprise, because he remembered that scene, and listened to it, he found that, well, he could listen better than what he can listen directly putting the air on the chest. Thus he invented stethoscope, and this was the initial stethoscope. It's so simple, and we know what the present stethoscopes are. I'm not reading out his translation by John Forbes, but actually what I have said has been written there. Now we have listened to the sound, we have gathered the information, and we form a subjective impression. This patient may have scar, this patient may have fluid inside the chest, or this patient may have pneumonia. And following for an algorithm of investigation to reach a final diagnosis. So as a doctor, we see this lot of investigations. If you have a patient been admitted, you know how many investigations have been done, how costly are they. And doesn't mean that all the investigations are applied to everyone, but we have to go through a battery of investigation most of the time. And even then, we cannot say for sure 100% that we are having this particular diagnosis. Let me look back now. Most of these tests, what we want, microbiological, radiological, immunological, genetic, etc., they are based not on information being naturally provided by the patient. One needs to find objective ways to assess the subjective domains. That means what I have framed in my mind is subjective. But if I have some instrument which will say, yes, this is the sound, the interpretation of the sound is this, then the whole thing will turn subjective. And why not look back to the naturally available information? And lung sound is one of the naturally available information. Like what Dr. Chakraborty has elaborated beautifully. Body is sending signals all around from different parts. And we have to learn what these signals mean. And we have to understand these signals properly. So these were our objectives: to make an effective instrument to capture lung sound, to isolate lung sound unmixed with heart sound. Once you listen to a sound, there are many other sounds. If you listen on the left side of the chest especially, you'll find a heart sound, and that comes as a noise if you're looking for the lung sound. To identify specific signature of normal and abnormal lung sounds and to test the result in terms of visually transformed images. We'll come to it later on. Let me start with the lung sound project. This is what we have started. The first thing was to make an acquisition of the breath sound. This is a small instrument has been developed by my colleague Dr. Shah. Dr. Chakraborty used to tell that Dr. Shah had made small boxes. And that was a small box and a very beautiful and a very effective box. We collected sounds and then it was in short. We will explain it later on how to make a new technology to filter hard sound off the total sound collection. So that we name as filtering of noise. And after that there was the issue of detection of the digital signature. Normal sounds have a particular signature, abnormal sounds have a particular signature. For the beginning, we selected a particular single disease which was diagnosed on the so-called gold standard investigations. And the sounds of lung sounds of those patients were collected. And finally, try to see how beautifully and how effectively we can differentiate normal from abnormal from the sound analysis. This is one patent application that came from Dr. Shah's work. And these are the two pictures. I think if you see these two pictures, on the left hand side, it's a normal lung sound, picturized like that. And on the right hand side, it's the abnormal. Those are distinctly different. And if you can further transform these pictures into pictures of two animals, perhaps it is far more simple. Even a small kid can identify which one is dangerous. The dangerous one is a tiger. So if it's a picture of tiger, then that means the patient has a disease. And if it's a cow, you see no such animal. So that is the normal. So this is where the story has ended for now. But the story has got a lot of prospects. I, as a doctor, go to rural areas for another research work of mine, where you see patients and where you find how helpless are the patients. You know the reality. In villages, we have a doctor-patient ratio to be close to 1:25,000, which is enormously difficult for the healthcare system to provide support. Now we have to take help of technology. But we imagine tomorrow that any lay person can collect sound, be it lung sound, heart sound, from a patient's surface, body surface, and transmit over to a center through mobile technology or technology, so that the interpretation can be easy at a distant point, and we can screen patients who require attention. And we can even diagnose, we can even give instruction from remote station to save lives. So this is the prospect. The result been already published. There are quite a few publications in engineering journals, but such kind of publication, this is one first, in a good medical journal, and it has luckily received editor's attention. They have written a special editorial on it. And I will just read one small part from the editorial. This is the paper itself. And the editor writes, so why is excitement? The answer lies in the word novel. The study is novel in more than one way. It is novel in the aspect of sound that we have chosen for analysis. It is novel, at least for us the physicians, in its visual representation of the sound. The struggle to convert sound into images could be considered as Herculean as the struggle to convert language into written form. And the authors have presented an interpretable pictorial display of the data. So they have compared it like the struggle when the humankind first started script. They started communicating through language, but at one point of time, we had the script. And this conversion of language to script was a very important phenomenon in our history of human civilization. So it is, to them it appears as a very important issue. Editors have also written in some other areas, and they say that, well, this particular innovation may have application to other areas as well. It's very interesting to to learn. Perhaps the technique described by Bhattacharya et al. Will be refined and actually make into clinical practice. Perhaps the key concepts will be found to be of value in another area of medicine. Perhaps they will simply teach us a little bit about skewness, lacunarity, and sample entropy. Those are technical things in the domain of Professor Shah. About the inner architecture of the sound, we listen to every day. Regardless, we thank them for looking at our world with different eyes. If you're Bengali, a lot of everyone will listen to the song Pratham Alor Chodal Duni Origin Ache. So I do not remember any song of Tagore that writes that he has picturized sound like Tomar Shurer Madhur Chobi Oije Pashe Nina Pashe. This is my way of expression. There's nothing like it. So maybe this is a kind of new journey. We are at the very, very basic stage now. We have got a long way to go. We need a lot of enhancement in our collaborations. We need a serious and consistent efforts, and definitely appropriate support. And with this, I thank you. We have other presentations too, and
so we have small 4-minute video with a small addition which
Maybe you can speak first and then.
okay. Regarding the signal processing part, there are quite a good number of challenges. We got introduced to Dr. Bhattacharya when we developed another device which is actually analyzing heart sound analyzer, and it actually won the DST Lockheed Martin Innovation Award. So that was the time we were working on heart sound related activity, and Dr. Bhattacharya visited IIT Kharagpur for some reason, and our director then at the time was the dean of the research. So he requested him to visit our lab and have a look what we are doing. And when Dr. Bhattacharya visited our lab, he said, I need one such thing for lung sound analysis. And when we started looking into the problem, or try to define the problem and the architecture, of the block, how to move forward, we found that the challenges are quite big, because the lung sound inherently has a dominating heart sound, as an envelope over it. So how we do the separation in a manner so that the lung sound characteristics, especially the ones that are carrying pathological signatures, are maintained properly. That was a big challenge, because the dominating heart sound, other than the instrument noise and other stuff. So when that discussion came, I said, once that part is done, we can take care of it. And the other issue was that we wanted to do it single channel data acquisition device, which makes it very relatively cheap, because we can use standard data acquisition tools that are already there, laptops, mobile phones, and all. And if we go for a specialized 4-channel, multi-channel device, maybe from signal processing point of view, the problem becomes a bit easier. But the end product will be very costly. I mean, when we are able to get a product out of it. So that was very challenging. It took quite a good amount of time to separate the heart sound and lung sound part of it to a reasonable accuracy so that it is appreciated by the doctors. And for that, let me tell you that our previous work with heart sound analyzer actually helped. The certainly technical part is there, especially the quasi-periodicity aspect of heart sound was used to extract the heart sound component, separate it out, and the remnant or the residual lung sound was coming into the prominence, which we showed it to the doctors and they found it useful. And we had a patent on that to start with. And then we started working on it, and then we looked at the data collection process follows normal, the standard process of having a training group and a test group, and they are to be kept separate. We learn from the training group, and then we use test result on the test group, and we have to do it through independent observers. And since medical domains are there, we didn't want to generate the result on our own through standard machine learning process. We wanted to have a human in loop kind of paradigm where a human being, whether a doctor or a medical professional, finally decides the outcome of this exercise. So we present the picture, the lung sound, if you see, I'll show you in the figure how it looks like. Maybe you can understand what it is. So we wanted to extract useful features out of it and present it in a visual form, which is easily comprehensible. And ultimately, there will be variation, subject to subject variation, degree of the disease, that for that there will be variation. But even with those variations, having those pictures in front of them, if the doctors or the medical professionals can make a decent prediction, then we think that we have been successful in that. So finally, the decision is taken by a human being, and that is the paradigm we followed. We didn't actually go into the extent that we take the decision on our own, and machine is a black box kind of stuff. Nobody knows what is happening inside, whether it is good or whether it is bad. So that is the thing that we did, and for that actually the features that we used, there are three technical terms. It is called skewness, lacunarity, and the third one is called sample entropy. What is it? It is mostly the morphology of the signal. When the signal is taken, the mass of the signal in several segments. The separation of the signal, distance of the signal from one to another. The distribution of the signal, whether it is in flat, relatively flat or not so flat. So these are the morphology of the signals that goes into the making of these two different kind of signals. So we used that, extracted those features, and from those features we actually developed a mapping algorithm which generates pictures, which is relatively easily comprehensible. We didn't do anything, any decision making, that we left to the doctors or the medical professionals to have that human in loop paradigm. So here is a signal, here is a extraction of morphological features, convert it to a picture, present it to them, so that it is easily comprehensible. A normal signal, if you see, the thing, it is not so comprehensible. If you present a normal lung sound and a diseased lung sound, if you just look at the time domain, the description of it, it is not that much comprehensible. So we extract relevant features associated with this and present it in a visual form. So that is the whole of it, and rest is as our director told and Dr. Bhattacharya told, has been hugely appreciated, and it came in a reputed journal, it's editorial. So that in short is the technical or engineering part of it.
Yes. I think we've said enough. Now you all can ask.
I